Sharp bone weapons struck Hyming's back, only to crack and shatter instantly. Hyming viciously swiped its claw at a goblin's head, causing its skull to literally explode. Abandoning all defense, Hyming went on a frenzied killing spree. Even with their low intelligence, the goblins felt a deep, instinctual terror. They stopped their attack and fled in a blind panic. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. I directed Hyming on which ones to hunt down, while I charged at the nearest goblin myself. Witnessing this brutal scene, the spectators outside were in an uproar. Holy shit. Does our second high school really have such a badass senior? It's one thing for his summon to be strong, but how is his own combat power so high? Is he hacking? In the viewing stands of second high, the freshmen and sophomores were buzzing with excitement. Just over 10 minutes ago, when they saw me encounter the goblins, everyone assumed I'd be eliminated. Yet, just one man and one beast wiped out the entire goblin pack. Seeing this, Li Mingji's face lit up with joy. To reach this level so quickly, he must have at least a B-rank talent, and a growth type 1 at that. His potential is virtually on par with a high-level summon. Is second high finally producing a genius who can be the face of our school? He hastily asked the person behind him, how many points does Chen Lin have now? According to the tracker, his current score is 560 points. He's ranked first in second high. But Su Lin Shui from third high is even more terrifying. Her score is 830, leading the entire field by a massive margin. Hearing this, Li Mingji and the other teachers all gasped in shock. They had been in the dungeon for less than 20 minutes. This score was enough to contend for the provincial championship. Back in the dungeon, orbs of light floated out from the goblin corpses and absorbed into my body. I quickly leveled up to level 2, and my spirit stats slightly increased by 5 points. This was the drawback of an ordinary class. Even if you kept up in leveling, as time went on, the gap in stats would only grow wider, eventually becoming an insurmountable chasm. However, I could bridge that gap through Hyming stat sharing. Although my score had already reached the passing mark, practically guaranteeing my admission to the academy, my goal didn't stop there. Nearby, Hyming was loudly crunching on the goblin corpses. Hyming, let's go. The real hunt begins now. Goblins are highly social monsters. Since a troop of them appeared here, their nest must be nearby. About 10 minutes passed without encountering a single monster along the way. This confirmed my theory. Although they call it a dungeon, it's more like a unique, isolated world. Things in here don't just magically respawn. They operate according to their own natural laws. Suddenly, several bone spears came flying at me from midair. Goblins began pouring out from all directions, howling wildly as they charged with their weapons. Without a trace of fear on my face, I shifted my staff into its sword form and instantly decapitated an incoming goblin. Like an unstoppable force, I concentrated fully, rapidly slaughtering the fragile goblins. With every dodge, my blade accurately claimed their lives. In that moment, I was like a butterfly dancing in the wind. Only my wings were scythes of death. This battle was as elegant as art, thrilling the spectators watching from the outside. Everyone, from the teachers to the students, was watching with amazement. His combat technique is so masterful. He must have put a lot of effort into this. His swordsmanship is even better. He's accurately slitting their throats every single time. If he were off by even a millimeter, it wouldn't be a kill. By now, they had stopped watching the other candidates. All eyes were locked on me, not looking away for a single second. Lu Wen's mouth twitched. In all 3 years of high school, he had never once seen me touch a sword during practical combat lessons. This kid is way too good at hiding his true strength. Wait, those are level 6 enraged goblins. A full 13 of them. Chen Lin is in trouble. Hold on, there are fire goblins and ice goblins too. Looking for a goblin nest all by himself. That's way too risky. The teachers couldn't help but feel a pang of worry. With the appearance of these elite goblins, the horde seemed to find its backbone and stopped attacking in a disorganized frenzy. As the fire goblins began to chant, fist-sized fireballs materialized and hurtled toward me. I dodged out of the way with a few quick sidesteps. Seeing an opening, the other goblins took the opportunity to strike. I tilted my head slightly to evade an incoming bone spear, immediately grabbed the goblin by the neck, and hurled it into the path of an incoming fireball. A bright burst of flames erupted, completely engulfing the goblin's body. Turning into a human launcher, I grabbed the goblins one by one and hurled them like cannonballs straight at the fire goblins. My god, you can fight like that? All the students watching from the outside were absolutely stunned. Even the homeroom teacher, Lu Wen, was dumbfounded by this tactic. He was pretty sure he had never taught that. By this point, I had battered the fire goblins into a dizzy stupor. If they cast their spells, they'd hit their own kind. If they didn't, they'd be killed. Amidst the chaos, Hyming flanked them from the rear, taking them down one by one. Out of over 100 goblins, only a few solitary stragglers remained. They had no choice but to flee. However, I didn't wipe them all out this time. I leisurely trailed behind them, intending to destroy their nest directly. Chasing the fleeing survivors, I entered a cave. Suddenly, a few scrawny green figures lunged at me from the rock wall above. Tightening my grip, I swung the sword staff firmly in a single arc. The goblin's head and body hit the ground separately. The remaining two were swiftly caught by Hyming, whose night vision allowed him to easily snap them up and happily crunch them down. Suddenly, countless torches illuminated the corner of the tunnel. My expression shifted, and I instantly dashed backward. Countless grotesque figures were crawling all over the walls. With a solemn expression, I roared, Hyming. Using his gigantification talent, Hyming's body instantly expanded at a terrifying rate. He violently charged forward, ramming the mid-air goblins aside. The surrounding goblins were sent flying in all directions. With a swipe of his massive claw, he crushed them flat, leaving nothing but a bloody mess. Right at that moment, a deafening, savage roar echoed out. A hideous monster with a thickly furred neck, bulging muscles, and the height of a small building slowly stepped out, glaring furiously at Haiming. My expression darkened. It was actually a boss. An actual boss. The troll kicked off with its legs and charged, making the entire cavern rumble. With every step it took, the ground violently shook. Completely fearless, Haiming charged straight at it. Black light coated Haiming's sharp claws. He landed the first strike on the troll's body, leaving 4 shallow gashes. Enraged by the pain, the troll became even more savage. Its massive, meter-wide hands grabbed Haiming by the head and violently slammed him down. Haiming's legs buckled under the force. He let out a whimper as blood trickled from his mouth. Seeing Haiming pinned down, I immediately cast my class skill, Strengthening Spell, boosting all his base stats by 20%. Strands of white light enveloped Haiming. Instantly, he flipped the massive troll onto the ground and ripped off a chunk of its flesh with his jaws. The troll's eyes turned blood red as it activated its Bloodlust skill. The two beasts locked in combat, their brawl growing increasingly frenzied. I maintained the Strengthening Spell while continuously casting recovery spells. The commotion echoed for hundreds of meters. Any students who heard it were utterly shocked. The bosses in the bone-bearing forest were at least level 12. What kind of madman was actually fighting one? At that moment, a 3-person squad hurried over, hoping to lend a hand and snag a share of the loot. But when they arrived, they froze in their tracks. The one fighting the boss wasn't a team. It was just me. Just then, I delivered the final blow with my sword, and the HP bar above the troll's head dropped from 1 to 0. None of the surrounding students had dared to intervene. Liu Liang and Liu Ruyan were among them. The two stared forward, utterly dumbfounded. They couldn't believe that little wolf had grown into this in just 1 day. At that moment, a 4-person squad walked over. It was Zhao Huiyang from the elite class. He smiled and said, "I didn't expect our school to have a badass like you. Your summon looks pretty badly hurt. Do you need us to heal it? Our team has an incredible holy priest." The moment he said that, Zhao Huiyang got kicked by the cute girl behind him. I looked at them, smiled, and said, "No need, but thank you." Hearing this, they prepared to leave. But just as they were leaving, they accidentally caught a glimpse of my score, 5,320 points. Zhao Huiyang almost let a curse word slip. Right at that moment, a blushing Liu Ruyan walked over. As it stopped right in front of her, Haiming's blood-red eyes stared at her coldly. Liu Ruyan instantly felt as if she had been plunged into an ice cave. Her legs gave out uncontrollably. I didn't even turn around to give her a single glance, afraid I might fall for her sweet trap once again. After that, I headed back into the cave to let Haiming continue feeding and strengthening itself. Once Haiming had devoured all the monsters, it was enveloped by a cocoon of energy. It seems this evolution far surpasses the one from the beast meat last time. I just wonder, once it emerges, what kind of combat power it will possess. Before long, a pair of sharp claws tore open the glowing cocoon. Haiming emerged, its size having grown once again. Its slitted pupils had turned deep blue, exuding a cold, noble aura. It also gained new skills: deterrence and flames. Even its talent leveled up by a tier. It was an absolute, all-around transformation. There was only 1 hour left until the college entrance exam ended. Riding Haiming, I started hunting for other monster strongholds. About 10 minutes later, Haiming and I entered the territory of another boss, the level 15 Twisted Tree King. Seeing me head straight for the Twisted Tree King, Li Mingji, watching from the outside, couldn't stop frowning. He knew that whether it was HP or attack power, the Twisted Tree King was more than double the stats of the troll. Meanwhile, I was only level 4, and to pull off such a massive leap in combat power was exceptionally rare, even across the entire country. Inside the dungeon, the moment I stepped onto the muddy ground, trees with blood-red eyes began to awaken, one after another. Their massive trunks split open, extending backward. I watched as they uprooted themselves, thrusting their jagged branches at me. I wasn't afraid in the slightest and dashed forward. In a flash, I drew the hidden blade from my staff. In the blink of an eye, I unleashed 5 strikes so fast that after images appeared, the branches were instantly severed, crashing to the ground. My eyes turned cold. I closed the distance to the treant in just a few quick strides and thrust my blade straight into its gaping maw. A copious amount of sap gushed wildly from its massive mouth. The treant's HP bar hit 0 instantly, and it collapsed to the ground. Seeing their kin die so brutally, the surrounding treants aggressively swarmed over to surround me. Just then, Haiming let out a furious roar, shredding a treant in front of it with a single swipe of its claws. Then pitch-black flames erupted from its body, cloaking it completely. It ignited the treants, and the fire rapidly spread to the others. The treants shrieked frantically, twisting in pure terror. However, no matter how hard they struggled, they couldn't extinguish the black flames. The fire was fueled by devouring their very life force. Seeing this, even I was a bit surprised. I didn't expect Haiming's flame attributes to be so insanely overpowered. Very quickly, the treants were reduced to ashes within the sea of pitch-black flames. The dart flames then returned into Haiming's body. With these flames, it basically meant Haiming could skip the process of eating meat and absorb energy directly. In just a short time, both Haiming and I leveled up again. My score immediately shot up to 7,120 points. Just then, the ground suddenly erupted. Countless arm-thick golden branches instantly shot up to strangle us. A furious, brutal roar echoed from a distance. Flanked by over 100 treants, a massive tree king over 100 meters tall slowly appeared. I silently took a step back, as even though my base stats had all surpassed 50 points now, charging in headfirst would likely end in my doom. I was still very self-aware of my limits. Haiming, go take them down. Strong enemies should definitely be left to the summons. A fierce glint flashed in Haiming's eyes as pitch-black flames erupted around its body. It charged directly at the central Twisted Tree King in its most powerful form. The dark flames greedily devoured everything in their path. Treants continuously let out agonizing howls. I seized the opportunity to dash in and finish them off. Watching its kin die in agony, one after another, the Twisted Tree King let out a deafening roar. Countless golden branches shot out to attack Haiming. Haiming completely ignored defending itself, and wildly charged straight at the Tree King's main body. A dark glow enveloped Haiming's razor-sharp claws as it viciously swiped down at the Twisted Tree King, ripping off chunks of its bark. The Twisted Tree King's face twisted in malice, all of its branches thrust at Haiming from every possible angle. However, relying on its physical durability, Haiming traded blows blow for blow. The pitch-black flames slowly began to creep up the tree's massive body. The Twisted Tree King's eyes filled with dread. It could feel its life force being slowly eroded away. Terrified, the Twisted Tree King frantically tried to flee, but Haiming let out another fierce roar. Instantly, the dark flames wrapped around it like binding chains. Haiming's assault grew even more brutal and relentless. At that moment, Zhao Huyang and the other three, who had rushed over to help, swallowed hard. Their faces were filled with pure shock. A-level 15 tier 2 boss, the Twisted Tree King, is actually being completely one-sidedly beaten? I was a little surprised to see them as well. Right at that moment, the booming sound of a massive object crashing down echoed, signaling that the Twisted Tree King was defeated. A white light enveloped me, and my level shot out to level 8. At the same time, the score on my tracker surged by another 3,000 points. I then let the 4 of them finish off the remaining treants. Isn't earning points a little too easy? Miao Shanshan stared with her mouth slightly agape. In just 10 short minutes, their scores had already reached the minimum admission requirement for a top university. Haven't we had to fight for our lives every time we faced monsters before? Zhao Huiyang shook his head. It's because the deterrence of Chenlin's Haiming is simply too overwhelming. No matter how many of these treants we slaughter, not a single one of them even dares to look back. Meanwhile, all the dark flames had already flown back into Haiming's body. Haiming's normal resting size had now grown to 7 meters. All of my base stats had broken past 70 points as well. My level had just hit level 10. I was ready for my first class transition. This college entrance exam was finally over for me. The dungeon began its forced teleportation. Shrouded in pillars of white light, countless students were successively transported back to the massive plaza. Waves of loud cheers immediately erupted to welcome them back. Haiming's 7-meter-tall figure sat quietly right beside me.
Follow, like, comment, and share for part 3.